We should,
Yeah.
yeah, it was some damage due to the flood.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 5:31. Any agenda adjustments?
Not for me.
No? Any public comment?
Alex is on Zoom. Do you have any,
Yes.
Alex?
Just having a little trouble figuring out how to, my raise hand seems to be missing right now. But anyways, I think I just heard the answer, but I was gonna ask, when you guys thought you were going to close the public hearing. It sounds like you're thinking August 21st.
We're hoping so if the town resolves the issues that they're working through. There's not a lot of point of us, of the trustees voting on anything until there's clarity about what's going on at the town level. So the plan tonight, obviously they can do what they want when we get there. They last meeting, they tabled it to a date specific, which was tonight. So they have to reopen the hearing. And I suspect what they'll do is immediately table it to August 21st. To get another month so we can figure out if the town addresses whatever questions that they have.
Sounds great. That was really my only question. So I think that's been answered then.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 19th meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. The check register approval. Do I have a motion to approve the check register?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I got a question. Is the check to Elmore General?
I had to guess, do you know what page it's on? It's probably the refund of their service work, so they paid to do some work up there,
Okay,
and I think we. The job came in less than the estimate,
all right,
but
good enough.
if I knew exactly what page I could give you that exactly. But not. There, I'll sign a check for that. And hold it, I print one time.
Elmore Community, it's on page 14. For $1,226.
That sounds about right. Page 14, so. Probably there, yeah. I think that's what it is.
Okay,
That's not familiar to you.
all right, any further discussion?
Yes.
Motion to approve the check register.
You have that, you just need to vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion approved. Okay, the next thing is a public hearing on the proposed zoning changes. Do I have a motion to open the tabled item from last meeting?
I will move to open the table item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Now, do I have a motion to table the
Public hearing.
public hearing until August 21st, our next meeting?
So I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of the credit line.
We'll talk about this, Ben.
Stuff together. So you may recall last year we took out a line of credit to help us pay our bills. It was a one-year note and we have to renew it each year. So then I have to actually do a cash flow analysis for them. So this note is for $785,182. It's a little bit more than what was in here, 120. This was just a draft. Basically, we're gonna, first of all, let me back up. We actually used, which we kind of talked about before, we used the Green River funds to pay down that note. And then when this is approved tomorrow or the next day when the funds are available, I'll pay back the Green River funds. So we actually need two parts of authorization on this. One is to authorize the line of credit again, and also just reaffirm the authorization of the use of the Green River funds to pay down the 2023 note.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a few changes, the draft that we put in the packet hadn't gone through legal yet. So on page 21, again, at the top, it's just the clarity of the actual dollar amount, it went up by $62. On page 23 at the top, it just put like the date of the cash flow certificate that I had done, which was 6/25. 2024, and I actually have the documents here that will need to be signed,
Okay,
and then. On somewhere else, there was a change on page 28 at the very bottom of the actual expense note. There was just a change where at the bottom where it says hereon of a tax, it should be hereon of electric charge to pay all sums due hereunder when due. And then legal also required that we remove, if necessary, the full faith and credit of the borrower are hereby irrevocably pledged. So he said because we're actually paying for this with our electric rates, that is more for taxes.
mm-hmm. All right, so we need two motions here. Or just one?
Two,
Two,
they're in the packet.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the line of credit?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I
think we just had that.
What is the rate we're paying in that kind of?
so, and I did not look at what the old rate was. It was maybe like 5.7, and this new rate is 5.8 now. So they're still up there.
But we can't just use our green rule, we do not have to do this.
I mean, we could, it just then isn't flexible to use the way you historically used.
I understand.
Because this truly is, and I just dawned on me that I should have brought that document that I've been updating with what we're using it for, but this really has been to pay bills, and it's been mostly the power supply bills.
Yeah.
The ones that
That's
I've
what we
done.
expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fine, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Like that, I do have with that. with
Yeah.
the second-
Well, you signed the second one is the.
The approval line of credit is
Yeah.
passed. Now we need another one for the,
Use of any other funds. To be paid, right next to the other one. They were right in order. On the same page.
what page is that? Okay, do I have another motion to approve the use of the Green River Fund?
So moved.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Thank you.
No.
Yes, you can, I didn't even catch that.
Do I sign? I don't have to sign.
You initially. You initially, if you cross it out, just initially. If you're
Okay,
gonna initial something, you're supposed to. Initial, if you're gonna cross something, you're supposed to initial it.
But then, yes, you do sign there, and then you
And you
also
still
sign
sign.
there.
All right, let's have a sign.
So there are 3 pages that,
Okay, it's not.
There are
I thought that
three,
was summer, is that crap? Stop. Yeah. Thank you all for that.
Mhm.
that,
Maybe the Fed will do as is anticipated, and start dropping rates.
well, that one needs to come back to Brad too, just so we know. And we are gonna do this more timely, get this whole process started next year, so that, there won't be a 2 to 3 week delay in the use of the funds versus payback.
Yeah, that caught me a little bit off guard. In other cases where I've had a line of credit, they didn't make you reapply and redo it. They just basically made you repay it and then they just extended it, but they didn't want to do that. You know, they want it. It must be what happens in 2024.
For now.
So that caught me by surprise. I didn't anticipate having to reapply, basically.
I So, I mean, I just have to reply, and then it's.
Never gets three.
There's a total of 3, and I know Brad needs to sign one more.
Yeah, I need to sign one more thing there. Okay. That makes sense. Oh, that
Thank
one
you.
was signed. That one was signed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, other business, the acceptance of the audit. Carl and I attended the audit meeting. And I think at the last meeting, you appointed us to sit in and approve the audit, and we did. So I guess we're gonna formalize it at this meeting.
Yeah, the only point, you don't even have to, have a motion, you just want Linda to pick up in minutes. That, you know, your ad hoc committee accepted the audit on behalf of the board. Because then there's a record in the minutes of, if some financial person ever says, you have record that the board accepted the minutes. We have a set of minutes that says, yes, we did, and here's how we did it, and so I think Linda will pick that all up through this video and. And it'll be reflected in there, so I mean, the good news is, we got a clean audit, so, all right. Not to be trifled with, and there used to be applauded, so.
And
We do every time, which is
I know, it's
perfect.
great. So,
it is on the website under the trustees tab.
Yeah.
The audit, the financial audit for year end.
Yeah.
If you guys want hard copies, let me know. We have a few of them, but
great news. There's a lot of ways to accept it, it just, you always have to have it in an official record. It's accepted, that's all we're trying to do.
Okay, moving on, flood mitigation grant requests.
Yeah, so, you know, we've been talking about this, in August 16th, we have to put in 3 applications for any ideas we have. And really, I think where we've landed is to really focus on the municipal water supply. We could come up with all kinds of ideas, but honestly, in the scheme of things, in this past year, we've had water on that field 4 times. And it's gouged a hole in it 3 times. And it's covered well 4 times. And particularly this gouging action, like, if we don't do something, we could have as much as a year-long period where people are on bottled water. Like, we have got to protect that recharge area. This is no trifling matter. So our view is to put in 3 applications. One is to armor the bank at the Tenny Bridge and to build a dispersion blanket out into the field. You're not allowed to raise it, put a new wall in, it goes higher. Basically, you protect the banks that it can't move, and you basically lay a blanket of boulders, say 100 feet into the field. And what that does in a combination is it knocks the energy out of the water. The water will still flow, but it can't gouge. We don't care if the water's there because it doesn't hurt the recharge area. And we're gonna abandon well 2 anyway, so we don't care about the well 2 flooding. So stage 1, application 1 is to apply for that. Application 2 is to apply for the relocation of well 2 to become well 4. Further towards the rail trail and out of the flood zone. So we have a brand new well that then still has a recharge area you can draw water from. And phase 3 is to build a flood-proof building around well 3, still in the floodplain. So we don't have to move all the equipment in the current building because it needs to stay operational. Just build a building around it. That goes up high, 3 feet higher with flood doors and everything. So you go up into the building and go down into the old building. And everything will be there, but it won't be able to flood. So we'll have 2 wells that are both protected from being in the floodplain and a recharge area that's protected by the blanket. We've applied for all this directly with FEMA. My instinct at this point, they may have a different one, is they're gonna offer us something, but it's gonna be a small percentage of the total cost, is my guess. I hope I'm wrong. You're allowed to apply for more than 1 program, and you can actually add them together. So the state program is not as restrictive as the federal program. So the federal can give us some, the state can give us some, and then we see where we are. So that's what our current thinking is now, is to apply for all three of those, and see how they score.
So can we start to work on well 3 before we get a grant?
We can at our own risk.
Oh.
We'd have to get permits, of course, you know, but we could apply for those too, so.
I would think, you know, it's at our own risk if we don't, we have another flood. We
Yeah,
don't have any water.
yep, I've actually thought that the higher risk, Bob, to be honest, is to armor that bank. Cause we can never recover the recharge area if it rechannels and goes right through. And, you know, Kevin, I don't know, I think he pulled the drone from this last flood, did a flyover. You can see this latest flood, you can see exactly where the river wants to go now. There's no doubt, and it's right through the middle of that field. We can always do, I'll tell you, Kevin and his team were up there 8 hours before the flood this year and shut that whole place down and had the tanks all full. So
Mhm.
even if well 3 flooded, you know, and we now have a spare motor for that well sitting right up here. Even if that well flooded within 2 or 3 days, it would be operational again, and we can go 5 days with the reservoirs. The real thing we can't ever recover from is if we lose our recharge area.
Okay, so we can't start armoring the bank without permits from the Army Corps of Engineers.
But I've got a meeting tomorrow to start talking to an engineer about, you know, designing how we would armor the bank and doing that dispersion blanket
Now, I remember,
for the permit.
if I remember correctly, after Irene.
Yep.
They just started doing things, armoring banks.
And
They
this,
just did.
this administration, well, which it seems backwards politically, I'll say that. Shelton administration basically said, everybody has a blanket permit, just go do good, we
Mhm.
trust you. This administration said, no, you still have to get permits.
Is that Scott or is that the ANR?
Well, yes, I mean,
Both.
she works for him.
Okay,
So,
But as far as Bob's point is, reinforcing the building would be a lot quicker than waiting for. Whenever we can get permits to do.
we gotta get permits to rebuild the building too.
Right, but that's local permits, we've been like,
No, we need one from, it's in the flood zone, so we need one from A and
well,
R.
what would be quicker, I mean, I'm for.
Yep.
Doing something now instead of waiting, because it's gonna happen
Yeah,
again.
and to me, we could move both of those, so we can, you know, we do 2 things at once.
okay,
So I think we wanna start, to me, we gotta start permitting these things for sure, and fronting that money, and then seeing how we do with that. And then we'll put in this pre-application, I think in the next couple months, we'll get a sense of what FEMA's gonna say-ish. 2 or 3 months, and we'll find out this fall what the state's gonna say. There's also, you know, as I said, and I talked again with the town yesterday about inviting all the federal agencies up as they offered up here. So we could pitch the thing to all the federal agencies and find out who's got grants, who's got 0 interest loans, who has negative interest loans. You know, who has what that they could put on the table to protect this water supply. And so I think we gotta get going on all of it. The answer is all of the above, right?
okay, it's too bad the state has no sense of urgency.
They don't seem to yet.
What's that?
They don't seem to yet.
And I'd like to get moving ahead as soon as we can, you know.
Me
So
too.
we're gonna lose our grants because we did something. It's like saying, you know, we're not gonna pump the bill just because we don't have a permit, we're sinking.
Right. And we gotta get moving, there's no doubt. Believe me, we feel the urgency on this too. He's not sleeping sometimes because of this.
Well, are we gonna spend another 50,000 filling that hole up again?
I don't want to, but I don't wanna leave it empty if it floods the next time and it's already 30 or 40 feet deep.
Well, I'd say fill it up again.
No, honestly, I don't wanna enable it to go any deeper.
I mean, if we're just buying time,
The question is, do we, at least in that spot that seems susceptible, do we fill it up? And then take the financial risk to cover it in rocks, with, you know, boulders, which might be the answer. No, FEMA will pay us under this declaration to refill it for the 3rd time with gravel and sand. And then, but we could get the contractor to then bring in dump truck loads of, you know, 3-foot plus boulders, you know. And just over that area that has been susceptible every time, just cover it, so it can't happen there.
Shouldn't they fill it with rock instead of filling
They
it?
won't pay us to fill it with rock, they'll only, under recovery, you can only do what was there.
well, we're just using bigger rocks. Still get small.
Well,
and the,
underground, we really don't want it, because we don't wanna encourage the water to then leak into our recharge area, right? So you really do wanna fill it up, but then you wanna protect that from being able to erode again, so. If we fill it up again, my bias is that we take the financial risk. Of whether we'll get reimbursement on mitigation to then cover what we fill up with really big. Boulders, and again, I'll get an engineer to tell
You know,
me
I'm
how
thinking-
big they should be.
If we lose the well. We're gonna lose our fire protection?
You lose every, well, no, you wouldn't lose fire protection, because we could still pump water. You know, there would still be water there, it just might not be drinkable. So you'd have fire protection is my guess, again, it depends on how it fails. But most likely you'd have fire protection, you wouldn't have drinking water. There's no guarantee that that will happen, by the way, let me say that, for anyone that watches this on TV, but.
I would take the
we're
risk,
going the wrong way.
I would take the risk of the money rather than the risk of losing the well.
I agree, read entirely, so. So, yeah, so this is definitely in our urgency bin here at Morrisville Water and Light these days, so, we gotta get moving on this stuff.
So do you want us to,
Don't need any action, we're gonna move it.
okay,
This is what we've been planning to do anyway, like I said, I already got the engineer meeting tomorrow, so, on this stuff, so we've already started. Yes, and we've got the designs, we already paid for the design, not the design, but the feasibility of the building around the building for all three. And the feasibility of a new well, we've already paid for all that work, that's all done. So, you know, we've been laying track on all this for quite a while now.
now,
Where did well 3 go?
Well, three will stay where it
Oh, yeah.
is, well, two would become well four, and would from there move slightly, I'm not good with the directions in that location, I would say if I was guessing southwest. Towards the rail trail, is that about right?
Towards the rail trail, towards town.
It goes up slope towards the rail trail, somewhere right there, we'd have to do some
On the other
exploratory,
side of the ditch.
we have to do some exploratory wells to make sure that we actually. Hit the pocket where the recharge flows, which has been done 40 years ago, but hasn't been done recently. So we'd have to do some exploration. When we bring a draw well in, Kevin and I are also talking about, we own property on the other side of 15. And not really for this time, but while we have an exploratory wells, we know the recharge area is all over that field. We don't know if it extends to our property on the other side of the road. So we may actually drill not an 18-inch hole for the well, but you know, a 4-inch well, just to find out, are we in, or is the recharge area across the street as well for future use?
How are you going to get up there? That's all pretty wooded and pretty steep, isn't it?
Cut your way in, and those things are good, you know, those guys can get those rigs where they need to get them.
Okay.
It'd probably it'd be a track one. It wouldn't
Oh,
be-
I see.
They make track ones to get in there.
Okay.
So we haven't decided to do that, but we've been thinking if we're hiring a well driller, it'd be
He's
good
there.
to know in the future.
Now, was that just to clarify, on the other side of 15 or the other side of 15A?
15A.
Okay,
We have property on the other side of 15A.
so going up towards, Gregory's property.
Mhm.
Yes,
I think you come off Darling Road and head in
Yeah.
that way.
yeah,
So, yeah, right now our thought is to put the new well right where I just said, but just know for the future if that actually extends there. Be good to know.
how much land do we own over there roughly? I mean, quite a bit?
60, 70 acres. It
Oh,
runs from
a
the
lot.
river all the way up to the reservoir.
Oh,
we purchased
That's the one we
that,
bought from Brad Gregory.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a map, send me that map.
oh,
Yeah.
So, all right, so that's what we're planning to apply for, do the pre-apps for. And again, we'll get moving on all this municipal well stuff. It gets pretty important. So what I don't wanna have happen, now our current estimates for all three of those is in the. Quote, you know, in the $3 million range. So what I don't wanna have happen is have 1,200 ratepayers paying for a $3 million bond. We gotta find some money somewhere. Right, so that's the key here. We gotta get some help, because that's pretty pricey for 1,200 ratepayers. Even spread over time, you know.
I know it's come up before about. Initiating a hookup charge for
Yep.
town water, we still working on that?
Yeah, as soon as we have the ordinance done, we'll be able to, you know, recommend hookup fees. You can't have a hookup fee if you don't have an ordinance, so we're getting there on the ordinance, we're pretty close.
And raising the sewer hookup fees?
sewer hookup fees, we wanted to bring forward both at once.
Mhm.
So you get in and have public hearings about changing that section all at once. So we basically have that stuff.
So we don't need the state's approval, we just have a public
We
hearing.
just gotta have our own public hearing.
Okay.
And to amend the appendix, I believe it is, to the ordinance, right? That's where we put the rates,
I
right?
think so.
I think that's how we did it. So we don't have to open up the whole ordinance, we just have to open up the appendix, which is
Okay.
where we keep the rates. The other rates appendix. Sorry, what I recall vaguely,
Vaguely, yeah.
so. All right, good, thank you.
All right, management update.
Well, then I think you're up.
Well, it's been a while, a couple weeks on the hydro front, touched on it briefly with ERG's discovery with the leaks on the draft tubes at Katie's Falls, so. I'm starting with Ken this afternoon, he wants to figure out how to get in there and tackle that. I guess John and Mike Dunham years ago welded some plates on there, so we gotta get some information from John about that. We may have to get a pump from Monash to pump that. Where the draft tubes enter the water to get the level down to see how far the cracks go and come up with a plan to fix that. The bearings in, and they've got Sigma C on board to figure out, we talked about some motion sense on the shaft itself. So we'll stop everything. So all that's new news as far as the draft tubes go, and so that's gonna take some time to get that together. So on the vertical, the runner fell into the head casing around the wicket gates during the storm. It was propped on two I beams in there, and the water, however, it did some swirling motion, knocked it off the I beams, and it fell through the water to the head case. So Ken's coming up next week to do some NDP, NDT analysis of the cast iron head case, and if that's broken or cracked, I don't know, we gotta figure out what's going on with that. So all the work they did to get to this point has gotta kind of be undone. Nothing has to go back yet, nothing's broken, but they clean up everything, re-grease everything, pull the runner out, flush that out, oil everything.
How far does this thing fall?
I don't know, 5 or 6 feet. So yeah, so with this being another FEMA event, we're sure they're keeping track, I mean, separate but equal, everything, all the work that they were doing toward the original project is now being segregated into work they're doing to recover from the flood, so we'll have to be able to recoup some of that.
Let me just say one thing, I have not heard anything about a FEMA declaration for the
No.
2024 flood, so let's just be
Yeah,
clear.
the governor announced that he was doing it, and our county was
In
included.
our county, okay,
Memorial was included, so
oh, okay,
he didn't, I think it was today, he announced that, so
Okay.
no, FEMA has not declared yet, obviously, because the state has to go first, but
okay,
the governor has.
good.
So Ken's, sorry.
There was a thing on the news this morning about FEMA not doing anything, they don't approve anything. And the fact, in Vermont, they spend more money on administration than they have on mitigation.
Yeah.
So they're just spinning their wheels and getting paid.
Yeah, it's challenging. We certainly have experienced some challenges there for sure. I think the challenge is that, they have a brilliant way to staff FEMA because it's an organization that has to do this
Yeah.
size wise. And so they bring on retirees, mostly the Tennessee Valley Authority retirees. The challenge with that is the way they bring them on is each person signs up for a stint. Of however much time they want to do. It might be 1 month, it might be 3 months, it might be 6 weeks. And so you get working with somebody. And then they just disappear and the next week it's somebody new. And while you think, I'm sure FEMA has precise standards for everything, right? I'm sure they do. But when you have a bunch of people coming and going, everyone's interpreting them to the best of their ability. I genuinely think everybody means well that we've worked with. But they have wildly different guidance to us and ways they interpret things. And that feeds into what you end up
Well,
seeing.
the thing that was on the news
So-
this morning, one of the things that was on the news this morning was there's 50 applications for buyouts for people's property, totally trashed last year.
Yeah.
They've approved one.
I'm giving you some insight of why I think that is. I mean,
Okay.
we've had people that have said, just in the flood from a year ago, we had a guy that basically pushed us very hard to break all of the damages we had into as many micro projects as we could. It was the first one we had, so we did that, we created, I think, 36 projects. And ever since that, each one we've had, I think we're on number 4 now. Three now,
James,
each one has said, well, that's crazy, you gotta have fewer projects, so let's combine them. And then the next one comes in and says, well, that's still crazy, you gotta combine them. And the problem is, we get to a point where none of us actually know what's in any project
And the
anymore.
next thing you know, the
Yeah.
first guy comes back and says, what did you do?
Right, so, and again, each person's well intentioned, you know, but like, we actually get to a place where we all have to look at each other and go, what the hell's in that new project now, like, which stuff's in it, like, it's hard to keep track of.
or where is the safety railing, or where
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this?
like, we just don't know where the component pieces are anymore. And so, you know, Penny's always like, wait a minute, before we go forward, where the hell is this piece, because you're paying us somehow. You know, and it, but that's kind of the way it works, so you can see how 3 or 4 or 5 different people might have looked at each one of those houses, and everyone has a different thought about how to do it, right? And so you end up now and you still haven't done it, right?
I mean, if it's condemned. It's,
I
to me,
know.
it's like you pay them or you don't pay them, if it's condemned, you're paying them.
We had one guy that told, one thing we didn't put on our list initially was, you know, the lost revenue from the hydro plants never even occurred to me. The guy was hell bent, like, you gotta file for that, you gotta figure out how much you spent in other power supply to pay for that, and we'll put that through and no problem. And then the next person was like, what the hell did you file that for? That's not eligible. What's wrong with you? Like, I spent 2 days coming up with a methodology to estimate that, you know? So it's just the way it works, and it's all well intentioned, but it's that model, it's how they staff themselves.
Okay,
So. All I can tell you is it is what it is.
A lot of fun.
We're
But to
getting,
your point, I've gotta believe they're paying for like housing.
Yep.
Like, they come up and they stay in hotels for 3 months and,
and they said on the news this morning, they spent more on administrative
yeah, I heard
costs
that as well.
than they've paid out.
so. I think that's partly why.
Yeah, they talk about just allowing the local folks to just tell them how much they need and,
And then the next thing you know, they're gonna say, well, we don't have any money to spend.
Yeah. We are getting there on the storm from a year ago. I think Penny's done a great job working with this most recent. We have a great person in charge right now for that particular flood. She really, she.
For now, yeah.
She's kind of quasi promised Penny that she's not going anywhere till she's done with us, so we're gonna try to pull her. But she comes up and goes into Penny's office and looks at her computer with her and I think helps her figure out how to navigate all their stuff, so she's been great. Really good,
and super responsive.
really responsive, so right now, things are going really well on that one. We've had, you know, the second flood we had in December, like, at first, so this is a whole separate event. And then they're like, well, we're just gonna combine it back into the one from July, and now they're like, well, no, we're not gonna do that.
And
And
we're only gonna pay for part of it. We're only
And-
paying for the,
like, she can't even get she can't even get to Baltic Avenue for crying out loud, much less past go.
And then we
So,
had 2 different inspections because one hand didn't know the other one already inspected it, so.
and because we lumped the second, I lumped everything together,
Yeah.
so it was a different project number, yeah, they.
Yeah.
Expected
it's just,
everything.
it's really, it's a crazy way to run a railroad, man.
So with that, Ken's been through these before, so everything he's doing, he's keeping separate, which is a lot easier, you know, months down the road when we have to pull numbers together, so. So more to come on Katie's Falls, one step forward, a couple back right now. Jumping ahead to Green River. We've had an issue with the unit, we can't get the unit online, John has discovered it, it's not building, the excitation field isn't being generated.
How does it get excited? Does it have a DC generator? Does it have diodes?
Diodes, and we have the DC AC to DC generator there. Dave Screw's been up to pull fuses so we can check in the panels, looking for fuses in there that, nothing obvious.
What does the voltage go to?
It's not going anywhere right now, for some reason the field's not being excited.
Well,
So-
if it's got diodes and slip rings, if you got one bad diode.
Mhm.
You're gonna get 0 voltage. I've had that happen to me before. And thing just died.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that hard to fix.
Mhm.
And the only thing that will make 0 voltage is a bad diode. Unless this thing has brushes and an outside DC generator, which it doesn't sound like it does.
Well. We checked everything obvious that came to mind, and as luck would have it, Hardwick got flooded again, and the crew that's been working up there, Scott got their contact information, got a hold of them, they came up yesterday and looked. They went through the rotor, they went through the stator, they went through the exciter, they checked all the diodes, they checked all the protection circuits, everything that's associated with the generator looks great. However, they couldn't figure out what it was, it's something in the controls, so. They recommended a company out of New Hampshire, Electric Technologies. They were just up there, spent the day up there. They think they know what it is. There's a failed PPT somewhere in there that they think is a result of the auto sync. Something to do with the auto sync is not allowing the excitation field to build. And they think there's some diodes or fuses in there somewhere that either don't show on the prints or we haven't been able to find, but they need to go in and trace wires to try to find them. So Dave's gonna kill the station again tomorrow. These guys are coming back up to find it, hopefully. Hopefully they'll get it fixed and we can start catching some of these peaks again, so. While they're here, as luck would have it, the battery charger, the DC battery bank charger at Morrisville blew. That was just add insult to injury, so. They get down at Green River, we're gonna go down, see what's going on there. If we have to, I hate doing swaptronics, but if we can take the unit, it's the exact same battery bank in Cadiz Falls. So if we can use that one temporarily to get Morrisville up, get a new battery bank charger for Cadiz Falls, maybe we can do some of that, but follow their lead on that, so. It's been a fun weekend generation, fun couple months.
As Kevin said, though, it has been kind of fortuitous to the extent Morrisville's gotten some knowledge about helping Hardwick. Like getting access to all these other brains, so they have a whole different suite of contractors that they've worked with, so. You know, we've just swept them all right into Green River to start having a relation with them to try something different. So, you know, so it's been, and they've been, because they flooded out again, just like us. They've been up here working in Arctic, so just swapped them right over here.
And they stay in Morrisville when they're here, so.
Okay.
Right in our backyard.
It's been good.
On the waterfront, Best Street project is scheduled for the 22nd. And they're gonna do, they just put in a dig safe to do the 2 wet taps Tuesday, I think. So they're gonna do the 8-inch wet tap and then a 2-inch wet tap for temporary water for Best Street, so. We'll still get the good old water and light water all through the project, no interruptions. Scott touched on the erosion at well 2. Well 3 was not affected, fortunately, it just wetted the floor in there, so by the grace of God, we're still running.
But before you jump out of that, because of the conversation we had before, because about 8 people watch these videos, just so you know. I do want to make really clear. The water throughout the whole most recent flood, since the most recent flood, is absolutely perfect. Again, we isolated everything, it never actually flooded, but we had it isolated in advance. The things we talked about earlier have nothing to do with the current water quality of the water system, so if anyone's listening, like, ease your mind. We're currently okay, it's about future worry.
We're gonna finish up lead and copper sampling tomorrow and get those samples in, that's done every 3 years on 10 different residences in the village. Sewer, we had a minor backup on Congress Street near Cherry, and we're gonna get Menage to really working at invert on that. Wastewater treatment plant, got the decanter issue has been resolved, and the on-site pump station had a little issue with the level sense, that's been fixed. And the SBR diffuser replacement is scheduled for the last week in July into August, so. You wanna see what the bottom of an SBR looks like, come on down, that would be quite a performance.
You wanna wait around it with him, he'll let you.
Yeah. Well, I think Tyvek suits at the ready. and a whole list of stuff I've got on here from FEMA that we've been knocking off pretty well. Bill Allen's done a lot of the welding work around the different issues we've had, and yeah, our meeting with Jane tomorrow will go well. We got a lot we'd like to get her finished up with, and we'll start it all over again.
What do you got?
So one of the major projects for the line crew this summer this year that we budgeted for was the replacement of those 24 transmission poles. They are a combination of distribution transmission. Dual circuit, same pole, and that goes from our Garfield Road to just beyond Morrisville use all across country. Under some adverse conditions at times, whether it's the extreme heat or all the wet conditions. Guys got stuck a couple times, made a mess here and there on occasion, but they've got themselves unstuck, got things tidied up, and they got the job done. My hat's off to them under some adverse conditions. I'm pretty proud of what they've accomplished. And I don't know if you had a chance to ride out there and take a look at that project, but you can see it either behind the aggregate plant that Minosh has there on 15, or from Mountain View Snack Bar. And that's what transmission line is supposed to look like. 100-foot right away, trimmed and cleaned, and brand new poles, and I'm pretty proud of that line. Mutual aid Hardwick, we did have a contract with them while they were shorthanded. That ended this past Monday. Rusty spent a lot of time over there during some of the storms. Morrisville didn't take any.
Trapped.
What's that?
Because he was trapped.
Yeah, but that was part of it, yeah. He got over there as the on-call lineman to cover the contract that we had for mutual aid, and he couldn't get back. About 1 o'clock in the morning, he sent the apprentice back to Morrisville because he saw the flooding, the waters coming up. Mike made it home. He had to take the high road from Hardwick through Garfield and back to his house in Hyde Park. But Rusty got stranded there, and so he, to his credit, helped Hardwick Fire Department get their trucks out of the flooding firehouse and help evacuate some folks in, I think, Greensboro. And then at that point, Hardwick had some more power outages, so he went back to work. And Rusty's a good employee.
That's why he's been wearing that cape all week.
Yeah. He's been busy, and he actually was washed out. His road to his house got washed out, but managed to get across. Nick LeBlanc, who was in Greensboro, his road got washed out for a second time in a year. He couldn't make it out. It was that bad, but he took a couple days vacation time, and then he came in. The flooding that caused the outages in Hardwick actually didn't cause us any trouble until the next morning. After daylight, we had 3 outages, all back on within a couple hours. So whatever the difference was from Morrisville to Hardwick, you can never tell. That they got hit hard, we didn't. Some various disconnect, reconnects, we kind of squeezed in between our project there on transmission line. We basically said no customer work for the month of June. And the customers, it's kind of an unprecedented approach by Water and Light Department as far as customer goes, but they were good, customers understood. And sometimes we were able to squeeze in these disconnects, reconnects. With the hot weather, we couldn't have the transmission line out. GMP is our switching authority. We have to clear all of our switching on the transmission line through them because our transmission lines are part of the grid in Vermont and New England. So they did not give us permission on a couple of occasions when it was so hot. The guys took that time to plug some gaps in our schedule with these customers' requests. One of them was the last bullet item there. Customer had a pole that we transferred. So again, credit to the crew for being flexible with that schedule. We had not our brand new bucket truck, and I'm sorry, I don't have a report on that yet, the delivery date, but we did get our other trucks in the parade, and I think that was pretty well received. I don't think we've done that for
I don't think it's happened since I've been here in 2006, so prior to then,
And everybody that was in the parade volunteered.
Yeah.
or their spouses volunteered them.
Yeah,
But it was good.
young women got shamed into it by their better halves. That's pretty much it for the electric department, that line, the transmission pole replacement capital business.
Did I read that we've about used up our line clearing budget?
Yeah, we've got just $2 left. Yeah, we did send them 2 days this week down to Stowe because a customer requested trees to be cleared down there. That went really super great, glad we got that done. And they're finishing up the distribution on Route 50 out by Mountain View Campground, and then we're gonna have to let them go for the year.
And obviously, Brad, that doesn't mean if we have a trouble spot that emerges, obviously, if we're having trouble, we go out and take care of it, right? It doesn't mean we're not cutting another tree for the year.
Right, and we'll
This
do,
is the planned work, is we're running out of it.
and we'll do what we can in-house, but if it became, a half a dozen sections off-road or something, and we just don't have the time in the schedule, we would certainly be able to bring them back in.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is, because it's been emergent since we wrote these, is I just wanna make sure you know, when you're here on the street. So, the extending fiber, the last mile project has hit our region. The Memorial Communications Union District, we consolidated, is stringing wire. They informed us they're stringing 207 miles worth of wire in our territory, which is almost our entire system.
Almost.
And it has started about as bumpy as it can start. They're just cutting in people's yards, they're putting the reels of fiber in people's driveways so we can't get in and out. So David is playing pretty hard with them, which I totally support, to make sure that they treat our customers appropriately. So it might get a little bit dicey, and don't be surprised if you're hearing some complaints around the community. Just know that is not work that we are doing. We are actually trying to get those folks to do things the right way, and it's a hard start. I mean, that's what I would, and please, I thought I would do it so your blood pressure didn't have to like blow the top of your head off. But add whatever you'd like.
My blood pressure did go up a little bit.
So is this communication district paying a fee to string their wires on our poles, just like Comcast or AT&T does?
Because they've already got attachments and they're overlashing, they can do that without any more additional attachment fees, where they've already got licenses. If they
But this is a different company though, isn't it?
Consolidated Communications,
Oh, it's doing it for the,
So they're using the fact they're on the pole to lash on as a contractor for a different entity, which I'm not really sure. if that's
okay, so
Mustard, but that's what's going on.
Consolidated is putting somebody else's wire on our poles?
no, it's. They're getting paid to put their fiber on our poles over
Yeah.
what they've already got attached.
Okay.
And they're. Consolidated is a subcontractor to the CUD.
Memorial
We've got money
Communications District, who probably they all got around 10 million apiece from the federal government to do this last mile. Everyone like rural electrification in 1920s.
Yeah,
This is the same thing for fiber.
And Consolidated was the successful bidder because they, in part because they already had infrastructure in greater areas than Comcast or Vermont Tel, and the other fiber providers. So they had a leg up, an advantage already. They're already on the
It's
poles.
all about it happening. It's good for people that can keep up in society.
I've
Just
seen
gotta
them,
do it right.
I've seen them all over 100 this.
Yeah, they just have to do it right, and we've been having phone calls from people complaining, thinking it's us, and David's managing it, I think he has their attention. So we wanted to make sure if you hear, like the person today had this apple tree cut down, basically, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you gotta stop this stuff. Just gonna do
Part
it.
of the problem is anytime we have a report of a wire down. And we don't know that they're doing this work in that area, kind of obligated to find out what's going on.
Mhm.
And if I know they're working in that area, I don't have to divert my crew from whatever they're doing, go check on something that is not anything to be concerned with. I can make a phone call and say, are your crews working in this area today? We've worked out a deal where they're gonna give me a weekly street sheet, so I know where they're working. And I'll have their contact information for the foreman on that crew. There's at least 4 different contractors subbing out for Consolidated that are on our system. And they didn't tell us any of their plans, so we're finding out about it after the project's already started. And so on my way from what should have been a pre-construction meeting with the coordinator for Consolidated to the office, people are calling in saying, you know, we got all these problems. I get to the office, find out there's been complaints. I start to respond to one in Cadiz Falls on my way there. Catch this contracting crew for Consolidated attaching the poles that they don't have a license to even be on, which was another concern I had, and they kind of blew me off on that. But although no, we're only attaching to poles we've already got infrastructure on, we're just overlapping. So if they haven't got a license, that means we have no record of it, we get no rental fee from it. So we got that straightened out. That's the start that you had to deal with.
So. The real point, we'll manage it, just if you hear things publicly, be aware that that's where the problem is right now. That's what's creating the issues that you may hear from our customers about. We'll get through that. So. Yeah, I just want to make sure all we're on David's, because. He might not have brought it up, because he's nicer than me.
I try to be that. Deep down inside, I'm not.
In the packet after the management meetings, management report, there is a chart of some of our insurance coverages that we do have. Vermont is really good, they handle most of our property insurance, but they're really good about basically going over all of our insurance coverages, which includes what we have through VLCT and the flood insurance, et cetera. So there's a chart in there. If you have any questions, please let me know. Scott and I are still continuing to look through the different software. We're talking, the billing, financial, there's a software that does like communications, another customer portal. We currently have the invoice hub, that's more of like a payment portal. There is a customer portal that we're also looking at that would provide a lot more information to customers about their usage, about their bill. But we're just going through a whole suite of everything that we have regarding billing and financial. We are kind of looking through costs and just pulling together that data now for the analysis of that, but I don't know if there's something else I think you wanted me to add.
I just want to, this was obviously making these changes was in this year's budget. I expect that, the initial cost will be a little higher than was in the budget, but we're financing it. We've got Penny and I we just finally got all the moving parts. There's 5 or 6 different pieces of cost here. We finally got all of them, so now she and I can sit down and say, is this the way we're going? Which is, if I was guessing, I think we're headed towards this model. Part of the reason it's a little bit more expensive is this company actually, which is our current company, now does have the capability to have access online. Into the cloud, which is both good. If we ever have another COVID or something like it, our team can work from home under any sort of reason. But it also means that we don't have to have servers sitting here, and we don't have any of the cyber security exposure because they do all that. So there's a lot of, to pay a little more upfront to get it in the cloud. There's long-term benefits to that to us. So we're trending more in that way as well. While that wasn't what was in our initial head, because not many of the companies that deal with our scale had cloud options, these guys do now have it. So we're trending that way, and then what that means is we have fairly sizable initial setup, but then it works kind of like the difference between the old Microsoft software you bought every 3 years versus the Microsoft 365 that you pay an annual fee for, and it's always the most up-to-date version. So once we do the initial software setup and we get moved over. Then it, you know, I don't have the right number, but it'd be like 70 grand a year. For a subscription fee, and we never have to upgrade, it's just always the most up to date. We're always, you know, so we don't have to do the project over again at that point, so that's where we're trending, just wanted you to know, we gotta get moving on this pretty soon, because. Probably a 6 to 8 month transition for all this, because they, you know, they've got a whole bunch of people in front of us to change over. And we need to get this done before we start installing advanced meter infrastructure next year. So we don't have to put that into our current system and then put it into a new system. We're trying to stack these things in the right order. So we're pretty soon gonna be getting moving on this if we both determine that, yeah, this is really the one to do, right? So just want to give you a heads up that we're ready to kick this off. We're not ready tonight to tell you definitely this is what we're doing, because we just finally got the last piece of costs in the last 48 hours or last second flight. So we gotta, she and I have one more discussion at least to have, but wanted to give you a heads up that that's where it looks like we're going.
And then the only other key point I wanted to add is that I don't know if I mentioned it, we did get into a rate case slot for August 15th filing. Another member backed out, so I am working on providing schedules and analysis of our rate year versus, or our test year versus our rate year. So test year is 2023, the rate year is gonna be October 1st, 2024 through September 2025. So basically you just take your test year and add any known and measurable items that you know that's gonna happen, and
So how much can we ask for without going through the whole process?
30%.
it's actually 3% now, but
3%.
that doesn't make it.
We're
We decided it didn't make sense, so we're
pretty
going
sure-
through the whole process.
pretty sure it won't do it at 3.
Yeah.
But what did we go for last time? 11?
11.25, and we ended up with 5.16.
So, but I will say, so we and Hardwick went first last time. We and Hardwick got annihilated by the state. And then everybody else got treated entirely differently. Enosburg asked for like 12.2, we got 12.15. All the arguments they made about us, after they realized what they'd done, they gave up on and gave to everybody else.
Sure wanna go last, huh?
So we anticipate, because of that learning, what BEPSA thinks is we'll get treated differently this time, and some of the stuff they denied last time, they'll approve this time. So that said, neither Penny or I, because she doesn't have the financials together, we don't even have a guess of what to tell you, other than neither of us think it's what 3 is gonna be anywhere near enough that we could use the short form and make it through. So if our analysis shows that, of course, we'll come back with Julie and tell you.
I mean, if you get to 3 every year, for 3 years, you got 9.
Yeah, we just gotta be able to survive that.
Yeah.
Right, so, but once she has the first look at it, we can make that decision, but right now, obviously, neither of us believe that will work in this first instance.
We can't go back and ask them, say, hey, you obviously,
At this point, you have to like go give them a new test year, and
they couldn't just look at everything we gave them and say, oh, you know, we messed up.
It's a different time.
So new guy.
So,
no, I'm not sure if it is a new guy, but
no, I think what happened is, what we've heard is, there was some new staff who hadn't really been through it before, so they asked different questions than ever before. And so we took the brunt of that, and then somebody must have stepped in and said, you gotta stop this. I don't know that's to be
But it
true.
was too late for us.
We and Harvard were both out the door. By that, when we get back, so we anticipate it'll be a little cleaner process this time. At least that's what we're being led to believe by.
But we're gonna be later in the calendar too.
Right, right,
Okay.
so, well, that's what we think, but again, that's all speculative at this
you
point.
know, I mean, I think it'll be fine. The one big thing that I'm a little concerned about, that we know that property taxes are going up. That we can't, I don't have actual rates, so I can't use the increase rate.
Right.
I know that for our wires and poles, like all those go up every year, I have the assessed value. So I can take the increase in the assessed value times last year's rate, as a known and measurable, but I can't assume that our rates are going up. I mean, I did receive Elmore tax bills earlier this week or last week, so I have those, but Stowe said it's gonna be, probably September, and I think the town said the same thing, August, September, so. And the town is where they have the majority, that's where the majority of our property taxes go to, so.
Anything else for Penny? On mine, I think most of it's written there, I've got a couple others, but I'll just note that I do think it's good news that we're now negotiating a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Public Service on our integrated resource plan. That generally means that all the policies and stuff we put in, at least the DPS is happy with, which has not been the history of the community submitting IRPs to the state. It's usually been a battle. They're now, the MOU are gonna say, so now you're gonna have to agree in the next few years to do something about what you wrote. So, it's one way to be careful what you ask for, but that's good news. And generally then what would happen is if we file an MOU with the DPS, that gets jointly filed with the PUC. And typically, that's the end of the proceeding. The PUC says, well, if the department and the utility are okay, yeah, approved. Some other entity could file as a party and change that, but usually whatever the MOU says is what the PUC usually approves. So I think we're in pretty good shape there, probably be another 2 or 3 months before we actually get an approval. But that's, I think, good news for us on that front, so we'll make sure we do that. The others that weren't in the report, as I noted, I think I told you we had a retreat, coming up with Beth, which was what, Monday? Yeah, Monday of this week. So, really looking out over the next year and the landscape of what's coming, and it was interesting. If you ever wanted to, we could even invite Ken to come in and do it, but he started it out by really laying out, sort of what all the trends are. He serves for BEPSA on the board of Velco. So Velco had brought in McKinsey, which some of you may know is a big management consultant that people like us could never hire, but Velco did. And so they were looking at all the national and global trends of what's going on with energy, and got very granular, even back down to ISO New England and things closer to home. And really, so what does the new renewable energy standard mean? And what does some recent FERC rulings mean in terms of how much transmission is going to cost? And what about ISO New England policy in terms of what capacity charges are going to be? And it's all very, very scary from a financial perspective, is what I would tell you. And again, Ken could give you a lot more information if you're ever interested in me inviting him to one of these meetings to walk you through it. And the point isn't scary, it was just the reality of all of these new policies being adopted. Interestingly, both FERC and ISO New England are starting to realize that the states have adopted these laws, and like they don't have much choice but to move the needle and start conforming to what the states are demanding. They're starting to bend to all these policies that all the states are passing, all these renewable and storage and everything else. And now they're looking at what does that cost, and it's a lot. It's a really steep curve. I don't remember any of the particular numbers, maybe Penny does, but
I don't either.
but I'll tell you, it was the most robust dialogue I've heard at a BEPSA meeting, because the managers were all over the map on every policy and what it means for members and what it means for BEPSA. And it was a pretty free-ranging dialogue, which I think is healthy. I won't tell you any dramatic outcomes came out of the retreat yet, because the staff then spends the day after the board to kind of dive in more detail to what should BEPSA do in the coming year. But we're gonna see pretty continuous, pretty big rate increases, mostly driven, almost exclusively, except for our own labor decisions, driven by external forces. That's the end. And we're gonna have to definitely invest in a whole lot of battery solutions, because the transmission and capacity costs at New England and FERC driven levels are gonna force you to basically try to not have any peak, have static 24/7, 365 energy use, which is impossible. But the closer you can approximate that, the cheaper it's gonna be for you. And if you don't do it and others do, it's gonna be worse for you, because everyone else is gonna stabilize their costs, but the cost is the same, the aggregate cost. So anyone that lags is gonna get screwed, because you're gonna pay for the people that went first. And the people that go first are gonna do better. So this is a game where going early is the only chance to be a winner. Was one of my reads on, particularly on things like storage, you've gotta manage the peaks dramatically. And the only way to do that, when all you believe in as a region is solar, is with storage, there's no other way.
Are we already scheduled for that outfit?
We signed an agreement with them,
We're already on the board, right?
yeah, and I will meet with them on Friday, David and I do to continue that discussion. That was really the highlight of that meeting, and I like to bring you good news, not bad, but that's not good news. I mean, it's not Vepsa's fault, but we're all talking about, so what does that mean for all of us as small utilities, and what more do we need from Vepsa? And what do we all need to think about ourselves about, you know, are we each big enough to kind of survive it, and, or do we have to work more together, or what does it mean? Like, it's gonna change the landscape, little doubt. I won't say every manager gets that at Vepsa, and I won't say every staff person at Vepsa gets that, but that's my takeaway. So, you know, let me know if you'd ever like me to invite Ken in to have a free ranging conversation like that. He certainly is available. I don't think we haven't invited Ken since I came to work here.
He's
He
been here before, hasn't
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, he was here quite a few times and we were
Yeah,
with Craig. I remember we kept bringing,
he? I
we
was,
brought him in.
I came in here when Craig left.
Oh,
yeah, but not since I've been here. We haven't had him since I've been here.
I thought
But
he'd been on at least once or twice.
I think he's been here when,
Yeah.
I know I met him.
I'm sure you have.
he's a real nice guy.
He goes to many of the trustee and commission meetings like every single time because they're in such chaos he has to.
You know, I just find it amazing, that the state's making all these mandates. And then the public service board won't grant the rate increases to pay for
I know,
Right.
it's
it. So I mean,
crazy. It's craziness, so
there's gotta be an end to it somewhere, we just say,
it
okay,
has to be.
we're just gonna close.
Right, there has
I
to be.
mean, you can't do that either, but.
So, I mean, he needs more meetings like a hole in the head, but on the other hand, he also acknowledges like there've been some of these places that are running better than others, and therefore we aren't in crisis, and so he hasn't had to come. Ken likes to be
I
connected,
think
not
he
just
likes
to the
to come,
manager, right? So, you know, so at some point, if you're interested, just let me know, and we'll put him on the agenda that works.
So how much time do you have left in Howard now?
In theory, the end of August, you know, and we're doing first round interviews tomorrow and Friday. So maybe, it might even be true. But, no, it's good. I think it's been good for both, honestly, you know, Penny and I were talking today, like, I come back to and tell her, like, you know, they do a few things different in the office, and they use this, and they do this a little differently. And she hasn't thrown anything at me and said, shut up, I don't wanna hear about that. She's actually been pretty interested and, you know, in hearing about how they've done it, and I do the same with them, and about how we do things here, and so.
And the whole collaboration with, like, who you use for hydro
The
and.
hydro thing, and the fact our line workers have been working together, so. Overall, I think it's been a positive both ways, you know, and so far, these three haven't told me that. They're feeling burned out because I'm not here as much, so,
Right?
you know, they may feel that way, but they haven't said it to me, so.
And I'm hopeful that when they do hire somebody, you know, the start of this relationship is already positive and.
Yep.
It can remain that way as
Yep.
opposed to how it was.
Yeah, so I think it'll be good. The other things I had, other than that, really, the other two have to do with Green River. We haven't had an update on that, but a couple only because there have not been significant things happening. There's only one significant thing happening, but one kind of announcement. So I'm speaking at the annual meeting of the Friends of Green River tomorrow, just to give them an update. You know, they have been, in the last year and a half, they've kind of been, as I think I've said to you, and have really been very supportive of the things we're doing, and I think that continues to be true. So just kind of keeping that relationship strong tomorrow night with them, giving them an update, because there's always rumors, like, they're just gonna sell to the state, so as a result, they're just gonna not worry about the water flows, and we're gonna have a terrible year on the reservoir, because Morrisville's not gonna care, and of course, somebody starts the rumor, and then it gets a life, you know how this crap happens, so the best thing just to go, so, you might see, who knows what they do for press, but just if you hear anything, it's true that I'm talking to them. but more substantively, so, there's a couple pieces here. Our very last appeal about Green River, which we haven't talked about in over a year, because nothing was happening, has been about whether the A&R waived their right to issue a 401 water quality certificate when they didn't make a decision in a 1-year period. That's been in the courts for a really long time. About 3 months ago, the court proceeding began, and we all started filing briefs, and every party filed briefs, and there was a schedule issued by the court. And then the day that the Chevron ruling was issued by the Supreme Court, the court of jurisdiction of this appeal canceled all discussion, which we don't know what the hell that means, right? Because the ruling is pretty impactful.
Oh, yeah.
The Chevron ruling basically said it limited EPA's authority
To do anything.
do anything, and certainly said that the federal government should not be deferring to local agencies. Which is what they do in these cases. They defer to ANR, the state environmental agency, and Chevron said that's not really a thing. It shouldn't be happening. So we shouldn't read too much hope into that, by the way, and then I think the court just said, our guess, I've talked to Paul Nolan, well, I have no idea, I've never seen this, and his colleague has never seen a court do this. I think they said, this is a substantive ruling, we better just, close the shades for a little while and go until the dust settles and someone tells us what Chevron means before we go anywhere with this. So I don't know if that means 3 months or 2 years before that restarts, but I did want you to know, like, we were on the precipice of the hearing happening. And then, like, literally with no explanation why, it was just like, yeah, no, this is not happening right now. And also that this really, quite big deal, it got a little bit of press, but not a lot. This Chevron decision of the Supreme Court is a really huge deal. Not only on issues around hydro, but far beyond that. Really, overall, EPA's authority on anything, is, depending on, of course, every attorney's gonna give you a different view, but it at least curtails an awful lot of historically what EPA's been doing, and it could be dramatically much more than that. Depending on, now all the courts are gonna have to decide what the Supreme Court meant, right? That's the way this works, and have that tested. So it'll be some time before it all sugars out, but it probably just means this appeal will go on for some pretty extended continued period of time. We thought that the opportunity of the appeal was about at its end, and now we don't know. Is the answer, so it's not much of an update for you. I was thinking pretty soon we'd have a decision, but I don't know how long it'll be. So, we'll see, just wanted you to be aware of that. That's all I have.
Anything for executive session?
Yep. I do have one on contract negotiation. Labor agreements.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll move that we go into executive session.
All in favor?
Yeah.
You want to.
Enter into executive session at 6:45.
And second. 6:45. Okay,
Hold on, stop
I
recording.
do, you're correct.
Alex,
Alex, he's gone.
okay, good man.
Oh, yes.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve Scott's proposal on compensation?
So,
Second
Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Well, the motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
2.
2. Thank you all.
I can see it.